What more can be said about the Dreamcast? It's been the retro community's favorite underdog ever since its premature discontinuation less than 3 years after release. Sega had finally gotten a console right again after fumbling with the Saturn and 32X, but in the end it was just too little too late to turn their console business around. While Sega failed to secure third-party developers back in 1999, today there's almost no shortage of homebrew games being developed or ported to the Dreamcast. You can probably already guess when it comes to porting favorites like Doom and Super Mario 64, but in 2024, over 25 years after its initial launch, some really cool projects sprang up that deserve some more attention, so let's dive into them. But first, thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. I've been getting into developing hardware recently, and for prototyping and manufacturing, PCBWay has never let me down. Everything I've ever ordered from them has arrived quickly and in impeccable quality, almost making me forget how I just bashed this design together on my laptop. I've also called on them to manufacture existing projects from Xbox mod chips to controller adapters, and the results have always been fantastic. If you're in the need for anything like this, I highly recommend checking them out. Firstly, what's the best way to play homebrew on your Dreamcast? Infamously, it was, and still is for the most part, possible to boot homebrew and even pirated games off of a conventional burned CD, which has led some people to incorrectly assume that the Dreamcast had no copy protection whatsoever. In reality, the Dreamcast at launch was considered one of the most secure consoles ever made, particularly due to its usage of GD-ROMs, a custom disc format that was impossible to burn at home. However, a flaw in the Dreamcast's handling of MIL CDs, a format made by Sega to add multimedia features to music albums, inadvertently enabled arbitrary code to be executed, which could then be used to load pirated games or anything else a user wanted. Since software updates were not a thing back then, all Sega could do was make a new hardware revision that removed MIL CD support altogether, since it never took off like they wanted anyway. But by that point the damage was done, and most Dreamcasts in existence today still retain that MIL CD bug. But burned CDs, while cheap and convenient, were never the best way to play. Since CDs stored less data than the Dreamcast's custom disc format, games often had to be modified to fit. While gameplay was usually unaffected, cutscenes, graphics, music, and sound effects would all have to be shortened or reduced in quality. And CDs are even less ideal today as the aging Dreamcast disk drives become less and less reliable and CD burners are all but extinct in modern PCs. Thankfully, the modern era has given us the GD-EMU, an optical drive emulator that lets you launch homebrew as well as full-size, unaltered games off an SD card. This is by far the best way to use your Dreamcast nowadays, but there's a catch. The GD-EMU is expensive, far more expensive than a CD burner and a stack of discs. Of course, you could argue with enough games that the cost of the disc would eventually balance out, but assuming you don't want to play the entire Dreamcast library, the GD-EMU will almost certainly be the more expensive option. But if you can afford it, it is by far the better overall experience. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into some cool homebrew projects. Please don't. Early last year, a Twitter user by the name of A Flock of Meese, or @MeeseDev, started uploading videos like this, with cryptic captions like, "The grass color and fog density vary depending on what biome you're in, #GameCube." A few months later, we got another post which was much more explicit. Minecraft on #Dreamcast, accompanied by a video that seemed to show exactly that. Naturally, this sparked some excitement. I mean, what self-respecting Dreamcast owner wouldn't play Minecraft on it at least once if they could? Well, there's a catch. MeeseDev was quick to clarify that this is not actually and never will be Minecraft. It's a completely custom codebase using the Minecraft assets as placeholders. While the visuals will remain blocky and Minecraft-like, the gameplay will apparently be quite different. While some people were disappointed about it not being a direct port or remake, MeeseDev has some valid concerns about the legality of recreating Minecraft. As such, there won't be any release until the engine is complete and the assets have been replaced. MeeseDev is also concerned about releasing the GameCube port at all, considering Nintendo's litigious reputation. But regardless, this is definitely an interesting project worth keeping an eye on. Over the months, MeeseDev has posted regular updates improving render distance, performance, and more. I recommend following them for more information. If you're looking for a more direct port, look no further than Twitter user Poititis, who in July also posted a cryptic message accompanied by a GIF of the GTA 3 menus running in the Dreamcast emulator Raycast. Updates followed showing in-game footage that, while slow and glitchy, was immediately recognizable. Obviously, this is a descendant of the famous RE3 decompilation from 2021, the same one that was largely sued out of existence. But of course, while the decomp is no longer actively maintained, there are many mirrors of it, allowing projects like this to branch off of it. More recently, videos have surfaced presenting a significantly smoother and less glitchy experience, achieving a solid 30 FPS even on original hardware. This is a fantastic achievement and a fascinating peek into an alternate universe where the Dreamcast had lasted the entire generation. Who knows what classic multi-platform games from the 2000s would have made their way over had that been the case. As a matter of fact, a few days ago, while putting this video together, an alpha version of this port was released on GitLab. You have to compile it yourself and supply your own copy of the game, but if you can do that, you can play GTA 3 on your Dreamcast. Modern Vintage Gamer has a much more detailed video out on this port, so for more information, I highly recommend watching that video too. Once again, the GTA community has never ceased to amaze, and I can't wait to see how this port continues. Hopefully it actually will continue. Now I mentioned Doom before, but have you ever heard of Doom 64? You might think it's just a port of Doom to the Nintendo 64, but in fact it's an entirely new Doom game that until very recently was only ever released on the Nintendo 64. Unlike the original Doom, which was made open source in 1997 and can famously run on just about anything with a CPU and a screen, Doom 64 features a much more advanced 3D engine, complete with more complex geometry and lighting effects. Doom 64 source code was also never released, but a strong cult following led to multiple attempts to port it to PC anyway, mashing various engines and assets extracted from the ROM together to varying degrees of success. Finally, in 2020, the game was fully decompiled by 100 gecs. Oh, actually just 1 gec, my bad. Ironically, in the same year it happened to be officially re-released for all major platforms at the time. But that decompilation has ultimately led to a Dreamcast port by JN Martin 84, which aims to not only port Doom 64, but also fix bugs in the original game and take advantage of the Dreamcast's vastly superior graphics capabilities. Check out this demo of the game using bump mapping, a feature that was brand new for consoles at the time and barely used at all on any official Dreamcast games. There's a great write-up of this by Falco Georgis that I'll link in the description if you're interested. I just love seeing developers pushing the boundaries of old systems that rarely got pushed to the limits at the time, and similarly, I can't wait to see how this project progresses. The Dreamcast may be over 25 years old now and may have been the biggest failure of the 6th generation of video games, but a strong community following has meant that there's never been a better time to own one than right now. Let me know in the comments if there are any other Dreamcast ports or projects you're excited about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in another 25 years.